Good afternoon, everyone. In today's exercise, we'll be examining and beginning information regarding things to prepare you for your public examination in Biology 3201. This lesson will focus on the nervous system. In particular, we'll do an introduction to some of the components, some of its structure, some of its divisions, and how it is actually protected. Now, if we look at the nervous system, keep in mind that this topic was covered off in Unit 1, the Homeostasis unit. Realize that cells, tissues, organs, and certainly organ systems all interact, all must continue to function, and all must maintain a biological balance in spite of changing external conditions. When the environment changes, the body's cells, the body's tissues, the body's organs must still maintain a constant steady state. That constant steady state we know as homeostasis. And homeostasis, that balance, is very critical to our existence. What homeostasis represents is a dynamic equilibrium, a balance that allows for, it displays constant interactions, and coupled with checks, coupled with balances, allow organisms to maintain themselves, to maintain their situation in spite of a changing environment. Homeostasis provides a stable operating conditions in our internal environment. And there are three components that are interacting. Firstly, there's a receptor, which receives information about the environment. The receptors, in turn, pass information on to an integrator, such as the brain, where interpretation is made as to what the information is saying, and just as more importantly, in fact, what to do with it. Information is then sent out to an effector. So we have input through the stimulus. We have output to counter effect and deal with the stimulus. The response to all of this is feedback to the receptor. In negative feedback, the most common example of this, the most common means by which feedback is given, the system cancels or counteracts the effect of the original stimulus. If we are too hot, our body's temperature is rising, our bodies take steps to bring it back down. This is negative feedback. In terms of structure and overall functioning of the nervous system, understand that the nervous system can really be broken down into two divisions, two sections. In this course, we have initially the central nervous system, which consists of the brain, the spinal cord. And the central nervous system receives sensory information and initiates motor control, what to do with it. The peripheral nervous system, the other component, includes the nerves. It includes everything that leads in and out of the central nervous system. Looking at the peripheral nervous system in more detail, the peripheral nervous system consists of the autonomic nervous system and the somatic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is what controls our voluntary or involuntary responses. It is not consciously controlled, and in turn it can be broken down into sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. The somatic nervous system, on the other hand, is comprised of sensory nerves that carry impulses from the body's sense organs to the central nervous system. It also consists of motor nerves that carry commands from the central nervous system to the muscles, and it deals primarily with the external world and changes in it. It's able to control subtle reflexes such as blinking, which don't require a conscious decision. So to summarize, the nervous system can be broken up into two major divisions. We have the central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. The central nervous system is our brain and our spinal cord. The peripheral nervous system consists of our skeletal nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system itself has two parts, sympathetic and parasympathetic. The sympathetic nervous system brings us up. It speeds up body responses, increased heart rate, increased blood pressure, breathing rate increasing. Whereas the parasympathetic slows things down. Heart rate slows. Blood pressure would drop back to normal. Breathing would slow down. So, by way of an example of some question you might see related to this topic, let's take the following constructed or selective response question. And these came from all public exams. Which division of the nervous system is responsible for returning involuntary body functions to normal after a stressful situation? In other words, bring you back down. The answer would be B, parasympathetic. The central nervous system, remember, is the brain and spinal cord. The somatic is the skeletal muscles. The sympathetic is the division that actually increases bodily responses. The parasympathetic is the one that allows you to return to normal. The following represents another question that came from an old public exam. Which regulates the contraction of voluntary, the key word is voluntary muscles in the nervous system? The autonomic nervous system? Well, those are involuntary. The hypothalamus? Well, it's part of the brain. Pituitary gland? Also part of the brain. But again, the key word here is the voluntary muscles. The answer would be the somatic nervous system. It is the division that controls voluntary muscles in the human arm or anywhere in the body for that matter. But as important as the nervous system is, because it is so important, it has to be protected. The two key things we have to worry about is the brain and the spinal cord. The brain is protected by the skull, provides a physical cushioning. It's an armor plating, bone. We have membranes which have been discussed with you throughout the course. The meninges, 3 of them, in fact, that will surround the brain, surround the spinal cord. The 3 meninges, remember, were the pia mater, the dura mater, and the arachnoid layer. Each of these membranes provide a means by which we control what enters, what leaves the brain. It also helps to provide anchoring for the brain to the skull itself. And we have cerebrospinal fluid. Cerebrospinal fluid fills spaces in the meninges to create a cushion. The spinal cord, on the other hand, it's protected by the vertebrae and also cerebrospinal fluid. Looking at the skull, it protects the brain because the skull is very hard. It provides an armor coating. The meninges, dura mater, arachnoid, pia mater. As for the cerebrospinal fluid, it circulates throughout the central nervous system. It's located between the brain and the skull, and it provides two key critical benefits. Those key benefits are, firstly, circulation, and secondarily, shock absorption. In circulating, it delivers nutrients to the structures of the nervous system, and also allows for removing waste from the brain and the spinal cord. Short, detoxifying the environment, helping to purify the environment. As per the shock absorption role, the CSF, cerebrospinal fluid, it allows protection from trauma. When you move, when you fall, all those things, blows to the head. Without the fluid, the brain will be, dare I say it, rattling around in your skull much more frequently. And in fact, every time you move your head, you would run the risk of getting a concussion without the cerebrospinal fluid acting as a cushion. Public exam question to reflect the material you may see from this. This one here, again, lifted directly from an old public exam, which is the series of three membranes that surround and protect the central nervous system. The corpus callosum provides a bridge between the hemispheres. The skull, well, that provides a protective coating, a physical coat, but it's not the membranes. The spinal cord, self-explanatory. The correct answer would indeed be the meninges. The structures that protect the brain. Hypothalamus, well, it's part of the brain. The medulla, again, a part of the brain. The pons, a part of the brain. The correct answer is meninges, which is the structure that actually protects the brain. That concludes our examination of the nervous system by way of an introduction. Thank you very much for your attention.